These are the ones, these real dark ones people like.
Well, Henry had a nickname everywhere in the valley, and it was Mr. Bitterroot.
He knew the bitterroot. I would say that Henry probably the foremost authority on bitterroots.
For the third year, they really go to town.
He was a remarkable man, and he took awfully good care of his bitterroots.
It was just the beauty of the flower and the culture of it that appealed to him.
In the Bitterroot Valley, there have been people who truly appreciate the bitterroot, but none more so than Henry Grant, Mr. Bitterroot. Born in 1909 to homesteaders, he was a writer, historian, rancher, and gardener.
My mother's folks homesteaded in 1883. That's where I'm living right now.
Henry's knowledge of the bitterroot was unparalleled, as was his passion for its cultivation. The plants in his garden were so well cared for that some of them produced as many as 60 or 70 blossoms, something unheard of in the wild.
He could tell you all about each one of the plants. There was so much variety in the different plants.
On the ends of the petals, they're not all the same shape. Some of them are square, some of them are up to a little point, so that he could point that out to you too.
So that's what I did. And then I kept, that was 1957. So like every year I kept widening it a little bit, picking all the rocks out.
If you don't mind my saying, he would keep the pinks and the whites separated, but it wasn't long till they was all intermingled.
Henry had started his garden in 1957 by collecting plants on the family farm, then eventually on forays throughout the valley.
So Henry would jump in the car with us and a little trenching tool and plastic bag for bread. And wherever we went, he would dig bitterroots. He'd stick that plastic bag full of bitterroots, bring them home, set them out, they'd all live.
Whenever he heard of a different color to the bitterroot, then he went out in the area and dug them. He just had a great network of people who could tell you where the bitterroots were, and he made friends and gathered bitterroots.
Well, a lot of people don't realize the different places the bitterroots grow, and he took us up to Lookout Point. Nothing but granite. Hike up in the car a little ways, and bitterroots are growing right out of the little pockets up there on top of that mountain. And a lot of them. This changed my thinking about how hardy the bitterroot plant was when I seen them up there, and they're just a little gravel here and there, and the bitterroots growing. That was one thing about it, though. Henry never took one from up there.
And Henry used to go to the dump out of Darby to get the bitterroot roots until the owner of that land made up his mind that he shouldn't let Henry dig in the dump anymore.
Well, the thing that aggravated us about the fellow at the dump up there at Darby didn't want Henry picking the bitterroots, but he'd take a bulldozer and bulldoze them over in the fill. But he didn't want Henry to have any and dig them. I didn't figure that out.
So then Henry would look somewhere else for his bitterroots.
The fact that he knew that they were rapidly disappearing made him feel that he had to save them.
So Henry set out to figure the secret of coaxing the little seeds into germinating.
The little shell on them was real hard, and that's the reason he would dampen them a little and then put them in the deep freeze and let them pop, break the outer shell, and then he would plant them, and that's where he got these little plants to growing. He could grow bitterroots and nobody else could, and I never could figure it out because I'd do the same thing he did and nothing mattered.
As fame of Henry's garden spread, it soon developed into a local attraction.
Times that the traffic was impassable out there. Everybody out with their cameras. Not just local people, but they would bring in their out-of-state people come out that had never seen anything like that. And didn't bother Henry a bit. He let them take all the pictures they wanted.
In the spring of 1980, a friend of Henry's, Lena Bell, a local historian and writing partner, came up with a novel idea to encourage more people to visit the Ravalli County Museum.
And all at once she said, "Why don't we have a Bitterroot Day? I'll call Henry Grant. I know he has all those bitterroots." From that point on, she and Henry worked on organizing it, and they organized Bitterroot Day. So I always considered that that day was Henry's and Lena's.
To prepare for Bitterroot Days, Henry would gather up plenty of the roots from his garden. Then he would meet up with Irma and Lena. Together they would spend the day peeling the tough skin off the roots.
On the south side of my house, and got up one morning after we got the window up, and there was a flock of magpies sitting on the well, and they were all talking at once. Did you ever count them in? See how many plants you had?
It was close to 2,000.
Starting the right way there, see that?
See, slides right off.
And then if you need a
A lot of people thought they were just one shade of pink. I have 7 different shades.
And one thing that when I missed when we went to Darby Memorial Day was the balsam root and the lupin. When they built the new road, they stripped the hillsides and we never saw one. And they used to be just thick up there.
Do you want some more? We missed a few, I think. Actually.
Tell me. The more you chew it, the more bitter it gets. Gosh.
Maybe some of these help my cold.
Well, now maybe cooking them took the bitterness out. I'm gonna eat the rest of it anyway, so.
Then, on the day before Bitterroot Days, Henry would set about collecting the most beautiful of the blossoms from his bountiful garden. They were placed in the back of his old truck for the cautious drive down the hill to the Ravalli County Museum several miles away.
There's no hurry.
Well, how many are you going to dig up?
Well, usually 500 or 600.
And he had a beautiful collection of containers. I'm sure that he probably picked them up at the auctions, because that's another thing that Henry did, was go to the auction every night. There was an auction on.
He never missed a one. Had his own seat.
He was very careful about how they were arranged. He would let somebody else help with that because, my goodness sake, 500 blossoms was a lot for an old man. He knew how he wanted it done and was always there to let us know what he thinks was a better way.
We asked Helen Guys, and she cooked bitterroots.
And then you have the plate.
Yeah, there's a piece of cake.
He said, well, he'd bring me the roots if I would cook them.
Helen used huckleberries to sweeten the roots, and Henry's friend Mava Lance helped him to spread the seeds throughout the valley.
And we filled a thimble full of bitterroot seeds and put them in packages. And there were people at Bitterroot Day that picked up 94 packets of bitterroot seed.
And the history of this area is very rich.
Often Salish tribal members are invited down to the museum on Bitterroot Days to tell about their culture and their stories about the bitterroot.
But the Bitterroot Valley is still an important part of our lives as the Salish people. The bitterroot is the first plant that is ready.
Finally, the time came for Henry to move on.
He was buried in his work clothes. Bib overalls, bitterroot shirt. I think he had a cap. I don't know if he had the cap on or just beside him. He left us at bitterroot time, so we took bitterroots over to the viewing room, and there was quite a bunch of them over there.
Beth Finley had one special request for the funeral director.
So I gave one especially nice bunch of them to Eddie and asked him to please let Henry take them with him. And Eddie did. And they're probably blooming now.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah, they're opening now, right over here.